Good, good. I'm so proud of myself. I turned my own sound system on this evening. Well, welcome back. I don't know where you've been. I looked all over Asia for you and didn't find you. That's true in more ways than one. We always begin everything at the Center for Spiritual Living with a spiritual mind treatment, so everybody just take a breath. Let it out. And continue to have that deep breath of life as we let go of everything that has anything to do with outside or before. We are fully present in this now moment, right here, right now, as we know together that there's only one thing going on in this entire universe and beyond. It doesn't matter what we call it. It is spirit, it is love, it is life, it is light, it is God, it is that creative essence, infinite, absolute, self-existent cause. Whatever it is we want to call it, there is only one. And since there is only one, everything must be a part of that one. Each and every one of us is a part of the divine. And since everything must exist in its totality, everywhere, always present, each and every one of us is the divine. So I know that's hard to wrap our heads around, but just take a minute and breathe it in. That we are God in form. And not just a little piece of God, we are God in form. And so we open up to the possibility of the greatness of us, of the expansion of us, of all that we are, whether we can understand it or not. We are beyond the farthest star. We are connected to everyone, everywhere, every when. We are all that is. And as we open up to that, we know that as a manifestation of spirit, then whatever God is, we are. So right here and right now, we claim our health, our wholeness, our prosperity, our love, our success, our joy. Right here and right now, we claim a life that is successful and happy in every way. That is our divine birthright. That is the creative essence that lives as us now. It is ours. How great is that? So with great gratitude and happiness and thanksgiving, we just let this go, knowing that this is the truth, that we are it. As together we say, and so it is. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Woo! So good evening, good evening, good evening. I understand that you had some wonderful experiences while I was gone, and I do want to check in with them a little bit. Right before I left, we had started working on spiritual mind treatment, which is our term for affirmative prayer. It is our way of focusing and directing intention and consciousness towards manifesting usually specific things in our lives. Even if it's joy or peace, we're focusing on something of creating that experience in our lives. And then John did that, and then I followed up on it, and then you had a panel of practitioners. So how was that? It didn't get recorded, so I have no idea what they told me. Who wants to share? Darcy.
I thought everybody had some really insightful thoughts about what they were talking about. You could tell they had given it a lot of thought, that they had practiced a lot, but a lot of the things they said were very insightful.
Good. Celeste, you were on the panel, weren't you? And Nina, you were on the panel. Was anyone else in the room on the panel? Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Who else has comments, even though they are in the room? Donald.
Yeah, we travel around the world with ideas and thoughts.
Good, so you had a vast array of ideas. Wonderful, wonderful. Who learned something from the panel? Good. Good. What'd you learn? Amy?
I was asking about activism and how that plays into the science mind and looking at it as being for something instead of against something.
Right. Right.
It's very helpful.
Right. Mother Teresa, will you come to an anti-war march? No, I'll come to a peace march. Right. Who else? What'd you learn? Vivian?
I learned this phrase, the power of the second thought.
Oh,
Which I hadn't heard that.
isn't that
Yeah,
wonderful?
it's pretty awesome.
Because pardon me? Well, and I just stole it from another minister. Forgetting her name right now, she's in Sacramento. But it's so wonderful because sometimes we can become very self-critical. And once we get that our thought is creating our experience, and then we think a thought that's limiting, we go, oh, shit, I thought that limiting thought. Now what am I gonna do? I've just totally screwed up my life. And then we have the second thought. And it doesn't matter if it's 10 years later, if we can have a second thought. So good, you learned about the second thought. Sorry, Darcy.
Part of what I liked about the panel was that we got a different perspective from the people that were up in front of us. So it's like you can hear something said a certain way a lot of times, but you hear it said another different way and something clicks, something connects. So it was good to hear things from a little different perspective from everybody.
Good, 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 good. Anybody else? How was it for you, Nina?
It's interesting, each one of us had a little different take on the ideas of science of mind. So, for me, it was exceptional.
What a wise choice. What about you, Celeste?
I agree, it's the same thing. I love it when, a question gets asked and one person would say, well, I actually don't think about it like that. And then the next person would say, well, I absolutely do. So it was, there would, that's not exact, but there would be a real contrast. So I think it was wonderful for each of us to hear that. And I think it's great for other people to hear, oh, this is truth, but it's truth filtered through each of our individual experiences in life, and so it comes out different.
Good, and that way we don't have everyone turn into little Barbara robots. Because I don't want that. I want everyone to experience the creative power of this teaching in their own way.
That would be a tall order.
Wonderful. Any other comments about the panel? Wonderful. And then you had Lynn Villa come and do a money workshop. It was good?
That was really good.
Tell me why it was good.
It was just amazing how she's just amazing as far as manifesting things and bringing in lists, and we saw the charts and how she does that,
And she really does fill out those charts.
She does.
Yeah.
It was very, very interesting, yeah, it was great.
Those are tithing charts. And she charts every cent that comes into her and figures out the tithe and then writes down where she gives it. And
To be that organized.
and because she would forget, because she's got money coming in every day. And so that was a real tool that she pulled out, because I saw the video of the last two classes, and she pulled that out of her file and scribbled all over it and notes and everything, so it was very real. Good, good, good. What else about Lynn's workshop?
One of
Margo.
the things I learned was that she pays her tithe right away.
She does. She used to come over and hand a check. Now she sends it through PayPal most of the time.
Yeah.
But that's because she wants to do it right then and there.
She told all of us to open a PayPal account too, so if people want to send us money, they can.
And if you want to send money to the center through PayPal, you can too. Yes.
What I think is amazing about her is that she's had so many really wonderful experiences come through her life. To meet the yoga and to do other things that she's been able to do. It's very inspiring.
Right, if Lynn Villa decides she wants to do something, she does it. She does it, and she does it because she knows how to work money.
Yeah.
And the way that she works money is she keeps her consciousness clean. She taught you all about forgiveness and going through your, where you've connected energy into your body and how to let that go and how how to be clear about who you are, and how to set the law in motion. And how to do it with a joy-filled heart, instead of saying, oh, I've got to write out this tithe check. She said, if that's where you're at, don't do it. You know, send it out of your fullness. And she's amazing, and always has been.
Another thing that she brought up that I thought was really interesting, is she said that credit card debt is always about unforgiveness.
Right, that's what Edwene has always said.
I-
Now that doesn't mean that you charge up something on your credit card and you pay it off.
Right.
It means if you've got $20,000 of credit card debt that you're paying the minimum amount on every month, and it's going up because of the interest, that's about lack of forgiveness. That's blocked energy. That's self-punishment.
That was a real interesting point, I've never heard that before.
Right, right. You don't have to play games with this teaching. If you can create money, you can create money. You don't have to charge it on a credit card. It's not like that. It's like God is everywhere and always present. Anything is possible, except I've got to put this on my credit card because that's the only way I'm going to be able to buy this. That's not the way that it works. And for that matter, putting it on your credit card is often the demise of manifestation. There's a conversation going on in our movement. I was just at the ministers' gathering 3 weeks ago in Los Angeles, and there's a conversation going on in our movement to support young people that want to go into ministry and to financially pay for it and give them living expenses, because God knows we need more young ministers. And the problem with that is that it is often when your back is against the wall that you learn how to manifest. So if your rent is 2 months overdue, you haven't got any food in the refrigerator, your car's on empty, and the creditors are calling, that's sometimes the time when you dig deep inside of yourself and force the manifestation to come through and prove it to yourself. Because how can you teach anyone that they can have anything that they want if the person teaching doesn't have everything that they want? So I had quite the lively conversation. Will your center support this program by committing a certain amount of money every month to this? No, I don't think it's a good idea. I think people go out there and they are scrappy and they figure it out and they have it work, and trying to make it easy on them doesn't help.
I would say they either want it or they don't, period. If you want it bad enough, you find a way to make it work.
You do. You find a way to make it work. And for me, I had to be on food stamps and welfare and desperate to find a way to make it work, to be willing to do the work that Lynn was talking about. To be willing, okay, well, if I'm going to starve or forgive my mother, okay, I'll forgive my mother, because starving isn't working.
And if you don't want to do it, all the money thrown at you in the world is not going to make you do it.
Right, and I don't think it's a matter of not wanting to do it. I think that you've got to, the terms, you've got to walk through the fire on your spiritual journey. Christy talked about it on the hero's journey. You've got to walk through the fire. And as one of the quotes yesterday from the Buddha, you are the only one who can do it. No one else can do it for you. And if you don't have that experience, all of the intellectual reading and papers and all of the dissertation about it isn't going to do anything. That's one reason we're having this class. This class is so that the members of this center will demonstrate in their life. I'm not interested in people who've taken years of classes and their lives still don't work. They still don't have any money, they're still angry, they're still reactive, they're still doing a job that they don't like. You know, I'm not interested in that. And what good is going to classes for years if your life doesn't work? Rocking Bear used to say, does your life grow corn? And that's a native question of, are things working? Do you have enough? You know, are things in balance? Are they in harmony in your world? And so we're having this class to bring our community, and we will have it as long as we have it, you know, to bring our community into a state where everybody's got more than enough money, everybody's body is working well, everybody's relationships are going great, and everybody's happy. You know, if you can't have that, what good is coming to class? What good is coming to this center? And to say, oh, God is all that there is, anything is possible, the power and the presence of the divine is right inside of me. I have the same energy as the sunrise that causes the world to spin, that's in me. You want to go to lunch? No, I haven't got any money. It's absurd. And there are plenty of places around the world that will let that be okay, and it's just not okay with me. You know, either this works or it doesn't work. So if you have an experience where you have to really challenge yourself, and sometimes that comes from being fired, sometimes it comes from being left, sometimes it comes from a diagnosis, you know, sometimes it comes from all kinds of reasons, that's a good thing because it allows us to reach deep inside of ourselves and find out what we're made of. And bring that forward in life. So I'm not interested in trying to sugarcoat the process. And when we get a chance to go through that, we are a changed person. And that's what my highest love is for all of you. That you have an opportunity to face your deepest fears, to go through the fire, and to come out a changed person. So what else did you learn from Lynn? Because money is great. Money is great. It's usually our biggest excuse to stay small. I can't do anything, I haven't got any money. Well, the only reason you don't have any money is because what's going on in between your ears and what's coming out of your mouth. Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. Who? Jane, what'd you learn from Lynn?
Well, I've known it before, but whenever I'm around Lynn, you know, she is there. I mean, she is inescapable. In other words,
Inescapable.
she has absolute trust and faith in herself, and she just projects it, and you just pick up on it. It's beautiful.
Good,
Yeah,
good,
so
good,
that's,
good.
But that's not an intellectual thing or anything.
No.
But she is terrific that way. She just has a wonderful energy
Good,
of faith.
good, good, good. So you got a real hit of faith.
Yeah, belief in herself, yeah.
Right, right. Anything else about the money workshop? Okay, what about the 4 agreements of Lissa last week? What'd you learn from Lissa last week? Lots. Lots like what?
Be impeccable with your word.
Be impeccable with your word. And what does that mean to you?
For me, it means integrity. Walking the talk, being real, being present, being true to myself, and showing my ethics and who I really am by my actions.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What were you going to say, Breezy?
Don't take anything personal.
Oh, yeah. Remember, this is not about me. Jane, Kathy, and Darcy.
I learned that the world is as you dream it.
Yes, the world is as you dream it. So sweet dreams. Kathy.
Don't take anything personally. For the first time I got it, if someone said something positive to you. I never realized, I got it the other way around, if it was a negative thing, but if it's a positive thing, it's what they believe anyway, so you
Right.
just say thank you.
Right. I'm just as nervous when someone puts me on a pedestal as when someone criticizes me. Just as nervous about where this relationship is going. Wonderful. Darcy.
I like how the Toltec teachings and the science of mind teachings ran really parallel to each other. they could both expand off of each other. You could learn very similar things from both of them. So
Right.
that's what I really liked about it.
Right. There are so many teachings of truth.
Mm.
You know, the quotes from the Buddha, were direct science of mind. The Four Agreements, excuse me, is direct science of mind. There's so many teachings of truth that have been around for thousands and thousands of years, or that are popping up, you know, Wayne Dyer popping up today, all saying the same thing. So good. One thing to remember in your thoughts about the Four Agreements and the idea of being impeccable with your word is that your word is creative. You know, what we talk about in Science of Mind is the power of your word, speaking it forth, claiming it, bringing it into form. And so when people so cavalierly say something that is out of integrity or out of alignment with where they want their lives to be, they are using that same creative power to create, instead of health and happiness and riches and joy, to create limitation and illness and suffering and frustration and anger and all of that. It is your word. And sometimes I say to people, say, that's your word. You just said that. You know, if you have to, bite your tongue until it bleeds. Don't let it come out of your mouth. And then they say, well, it's going on inside of my head. Well, the first thing to do is stop it from coming out of your mouth. And then we'll work on stopping yourself from thinking that. But it's your word. It's like when people say they're going to do something and then they just blow it off. Oh, I know I said that, but yeah, I'm not going to do it. It's not convenient anymore. That's your word. That's what you're creating in your life. So if you decide you're going to not do something that you agreed to do, just change your agreement. Bring your word back into alignment with what you're doing. There's nothing that says that you're stuck. If you decide you're not going to stay married to someone, if you decide you're not going to meet someone for the movies, if you decide you're not going to do whatever it is you said you were going to do, just change that agreement so that you're back in alignment and integrity with that word that's coming out of you. It is so important. And that's one reason Lynn can reach out and demonstrate money right out of thin air, because she's in alignment. She's clear, she's clean. And that's why some people are intimidated by her, because she's so intense. Have you noticed that? She does a spiritual mind treatment, she's just shaking like a leaf. That's not fear, that's energy pouring through her because she's not blocked. So what we want to do is we want to clean ourselves up, focus our attention, be in alignment with what we're thinking and speaking and doing, and watch how things show up in our life. I love this whole creative process. I love to manifest things. It's fun. You know, and we're manifesting things all the time, so we might as well manifest things that we like. Rather than the flat tire, let's manifest a full tire. You know, rather than a car not starting, let's manifest a car that starts. Rather than an empty pocket, let's manifest a full pocket. We might as well do that. Then we can look at it and go, I did that. It's fun. Anything else you want to share about the time I was gone?
David?
Pardon me?
David?
Oh, David Washington on Sunday. What did you think about David?
That was
David
amazing.
was really powerful, I thought. His talk was really great. He took nice long pauses, he thought about everything, he just really projected well. His
Right.
message was really projected well.
I like David a lot.
Yeah, he was awesome.
And I told him, I said, everybody knows you now as music director. I want them to know you as Reverend. Because he kind of came in under the radar.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
He will.
Well,
Jane?
Yeah, what I loved about his talk on Sunday was that he would say something and then he would pause. And I was wondering how come these pauses, though I was comfortable with them, but turns out he was listening for God to supply what he wanted to say. And I thought that was amazing that, you know, that's just the opposite of just yakking on without listening to yourself.
Right, he was not an unconscious yacker. Right. There was a great deal of consciousness, and there's a rhythm. There was a rhythm to that was very comfortable. This is someone who gave Sunday talks every Sunday for years and years and years. So he's quite accomplished in that. Yeah. What else? Anything else? It's been 3 weeks. What is your name?
Lindy.
Lindy.
So I have a question about the tithing, because I know the whole Edwin Gaines thing, and that's what Lynn brought, to us. And then I've also, I'm, a big Abraham Hicks fan, and they talk about tithing in a little different way. So I think I'm just a little confused, because I definitely want to tithe in my life, but there's something about, and I'm not sure how to put this into words, but what is your take on tithing?
My take on tithing is that when I tithe, I stay in the flow of creation. I mean, I have many takes on tithing, so I'm kind of picking and choosing here. One of the things I love about people who are beginning to tithe is how much it scares them. And that's wonderful because that's your block. Your block is that there won't be enough. Your block is, oh my God, I can't make it on 100%. What in the world do they want me to do with 90%? This is crazy. And so that's your block. And you can get into your block and say, I can't make it on 100%, and you won't. Or you can look at that and say, not tithing hasn't really been working. I'm not, going where I want to go and doing what I want to do here, so I'm going to try this. And I'm going to, and I'll tell people, set a time limit on it. Commit to tithe for 3 months, for 6 months. Write it all down. Write down the money that comes in. Write down every penny. If you find a dime on the parking lot, pick it up, be grateful for it, tithe on it, and write it down. And what happens is you're setting spiritual law in motion, and it has to show up. It has to show up. I started tithing when I was on food stamps, I was on welfare, I had a 3-year-old child, and I was giving plasma twice a week to try to have enough money to get by. My life was not working. And so when I first learned about this, I jumped right on board. I said, well, at this rate, I'm starving to death, so let's go ahead and give away 10%. Well, what difference does it make if I haven't got anything anyway? And immediately my life changed. I got a job, I got a car, I got an apartment. I mean, my life changed in a couple of months. Hello? So what I know is that I've been tithing for over 35 years. My son is 40, so I've been tithing for 37 years, that I've always had enough, and that I actually started this center because I realized that though I was setting aside my tithe money, at that time in my life, I didn't have anywhere to give it. I was not being spiritually fed. And I knew myself well enough to know that that is a dangerous game for me to play. To isolate myself spiritually is dangerous for me because I don't default back to great. I'll default back to fear, to lack, to pettiness. If I don't really keep on myself and hold myself up, then I'm not naturally great. I mean, you think I'm naturally great, but I'm not. I hold myself up to clarity and to greatness because I practice principles and I do my spiritual practice and I pay attention to what I'm thinking. I could just as easily be I could be a racket fratchet, I'm very clear that I had an alternative life where I could have been, like a personal injury protection lawyer, and I could have just been this mean, nasty person who was smart enough to work the system and to be rich, but I would have been an awful person. I would have been that awful person, so I didn't go that road. So I know that if I'm setting spiritual law in motion, that I'm always going to have more than enough, and I do always have more than enough. I wouldn't stop tithing for $1 million. Someone could come up to me and write me out $1 million check. I wouldn't stop tithing because that would take away from me what Jane called that sense of faith that Lynn has, that sureness, that security in life, that everything's going to work out, everything's going to be fine, no matter what it looks like. So Don't let your fear rule you. Take the action that will challenge that fear, and then as the money shows up, you can go, oh my gosh, money just showed up out of the blue. I either changed jobs, I got a raise, somebody gave me some money, whatever happened, money showed up, I have more than I had before, and I did that. I did that by taking action, by setting law in motion, by doing something other than hiding under the covers, being afraid that I won't have enough money, which only creates not having enough money. I have more takes. I could go on and on and on. Is that good, Lindy?
Yeah, well, I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
So I think the discrepancy is, okay, so for example, if I know that like going to a yoga class spiritually feeds me, and it's $10, and I have to, but that's how much it costs.
That's not a tithe.
That's not a tithe.
That's a gain.
It's, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
No, if you want to put the $10 in and then put another 10,
Okay,
that other 10 is a tithe.
okay.
But saying, how can I work a deal with the universe so that my tithe really goes to pay my yoga fee? It's not a tithe. The tithe is given freely, and you don't get to care what anybody does with the tithe money. You don't get to come up to Barbara and say, here, I'm going to tithe, and I want you to do this with it. That's not a tithe. Jill and Haley and what's your name? Adrian? Adrian. Jill, and I just want to welcome Jill to this class. Jill was my student 33 years ago in Miami. She just moved here from Pennsylvania to be a part of this center. She moved here. So welcome, Jill.
I follow you anywhere, it just takes me a while. Speaking of giving to where we're spiritually fed, I noticed on the back of the Sunday program, there's that little bar scan thing that says.
Q code, QR
How
code.
does that work?
Oh, if you flash it with your smartphone, it takes you to our PayPal page on the website.
Oh, I see.
So you can just flash it with your and do this, lots of zeros, and that goes from your bank account to our bank account. It's wonderful, it's called technology. I love it.
Great idea, okay.
Yeah, yeah, we try to make it as easy as possible for you to give. Thank you, Adrian.
So what happens if you offer a tithe and they don't take it?
We've done that when, I think it was when What the Bleep first came out. We, at that time, we were not tithing a full 10% to a parent organization because at that time we didn't belong to a parent organization. So we sent tithe checks to all of the people that were in that movie. And a number of them graciously accepted it, and there were some that vehemently returned them, saying, I don't know what you're trying to pull, and all of that. So we just blessed it and canceled out the check, and there's nothing that we could do. If someone doesn't want to take it, but do you see how someone not taking it not only robs them, but robs you of the opportunity to give?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny, because we had the same conversation of what he was offering me, and I allowed, and I wanted to, you know, tithe, and I didn't use that word, but I said, I want to offer this to you, and he said, no, 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 and I thought, oh.
That's his insistence on keeping his good away.
Give it to somebody else.
Give it to
Yeah.
somebody else.
Whenever anyone offers you anything, the correct response is,
Thank you.
Thank you. Doesn't matter if you want it, doesn't matter if you're going to keep it, even if it's criticism. The correct response is thank you. Because as you say thank you, you are accepting good into your life. Instead of saying, oh no, that's really not my color, I don't really like that. People give me stuff all the time. I don't keep it. Don't give me something and expect to see it on me. Chances are you'll see it on someone else. But I'll say thank you so that I'm in the flow, so that I give that person the opportunity to give. But you don't get to give with strings. Once you give it, it's gone. You don't get to say what happens to it anymore. You've given it, you're done, it's gone. Whoever you've given it to gets to do whatever they want to. It's like if you give money to the person on the side of the road with the sign, You don't get to say whether it goes to food or whether it goes to booze or pot or whatever. It's not your business. You gave money, it's gone. It's the same way with your tithe. You give your tithe, and once you give it, whatever people do with it is their business. And I do encourage you to tithe to this center. You're not required to tithe to this center, but I often say, you know, it's wonderful that you have this connection with this person and you're going to tithe to them. And where did you meet them? I met them at the center. Where did you have the connection? I had it at the center. Well, how in the world do you think you got that connection other than the center? The center had to exist for you to come together and meet that person and have the connection. So thank you for your willingness to support keeping the center open so that we can have all of this great opportunity to be together and learn and grow together. And if you feel compelled to give your tithe to someone or something outside of directly to the center, then you should follow that, because that's staying in integrity inside of yourself. I just always like to throw in there that happened because of the center.
And it all comes back.
And it all comes back. It all comes back. So we started this center based on tithing. The center has always had more than enough money. We've always had more than enough money. Everything always prospers. We are in a town of 80,000 people. We have over 300 members. We have 6 acres and a school. You know, we're doing great. We are absolutely doing great. I look at people in downtown Los Angeles who've got 30 people on a Sunday, and I just marvel. It's like, how is that possible? Because I think that if you're really keeping your energy clean, and if you're walking your talk and practicing what you preach, you can't help but have people show up. And people will show up who are in alignment with really growing and really having their lives work better. It's not a coincidence that you are in this class. You are in this class because you are as Abraham would say, a vibrational match to the intention and the energy of this center, which is that we are going to demonstrate the blessed life, health, happiness, wholeness, joy, love, peace, all of that. We get that. We don't just talk about it. If we're just talking about it and not having it, then this is a sham and we should just shut it down. But it's not. We get to really demonstrate having our lives get better. So, how many people in this class have had their lives get better since they started coming to the center? Yeah, of course. That's what we do. Our lives get better, we demonstrate the teachings, we practice what we preach. So any other comments on the time I was gone?
Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you. Kathy?
Did you get to walk with the tigers?
I got the story of the monks, and John gets the story of the tigers. That was his deal. He said, don't you go talking about the tigers. So John gets the story of that.
The elephant too? The elephant? He gets all the animals.
Yes, yes, he does.
Was it pretty good massage?
Oh God, I had 2-hour Thai massages almost every day. The days that I didn't have 2-hour Thai massages, I had 1-hour Thai massages. And the difference between the US dollar and the Thai baht made the massages $4. Now the 2-hour massages would be $8, and I would have tipped them, but tipping someone in Thailand is an insult. So, yeah, because they're such a Buddhist culture that they are chalking up Buddhist brownie points for karmic reincarnation. And so they do their best, and they're happy, and they're in service and all of that, and you give them a tip and it just blows all of their karma points. So they're insulted. Japanese people are more insulted than Thai people to have a tip. You don't tip them. It's an affront to them. So you pay them and you thank them, and everybody bows and everything's good. And it was great. It was great. It was interesting to me, and I am going to talk about my trip a little bit. before I left, you noticed that I had a little bit of anxiety going on. I got really, really sick. I had anxiety. I was not comfortable about this idea that we were going to land in Tokyo at 10 o'clock at night. And as you go through customs, you're out of the airport. I mean, that's the end of customs, is you're outside. Oh my gosh. So whenever you land in an international airport, there's a level of immigration in that they want to know that you're in their country. So you go through all of that, and then we would have been out on the streets in Tokyo at about 11 o'clock at night, which would have been fine because that's, you know, something in the morning to us time-wise. And John wanted to see Tokyo. So I had some anxiety about 18 hours outside in Tokyo, and to get from the airport that we landed in to the airport that we were going to take off from was a 90-minute train ride. It was not close. Tokyo is huge. So to get across town would have been an hour and a half. And we're in the middle of Tokyo in the middle of the night. And as much as Barbara Updike was saying, Tokyo has no gangs, Tokyo has no crime, they've got all these international information centers, it would have been the middle of the night, and I had some anxiety about that. I actually went out and bought backpacks so that we would have our luggage strapped onto us as we went through Tokyo, so we weren't, you know, pulling our luggage behind us. We would have it on us so that we would be more easy to move through the city, that kind of thing. And what happened was we were at the ministers' meeting, which was fantastic. We had 200 ministers show up in Southern California for our second meeting, which is more than we've ever had come together, and it was just a great time. But the night before we were leaving, I was on my phone checking out the Weather Channel to see what I should leave out of my backpack to wear in Tokyo when we landed at 10 o'clock at night to walk around the city and see what's open. I don't know. And I found out that there was a typhoon barreling down on Tokyo. At that time it was the equivalent of a Category 3 hurricane and growing. And it was going to hit Tokyo during the 18-hour layover that we had. Really? So I'm wondering, of that anxiety, how much of that was my intuitive knowing that I was flying into literally a typhoon. And I had not checked the weather. I was in the middle of a conference and I was part of the 6 putting it on, so I was busy and I was just getting over being sick, and I wasn't checking weather till everything was over, you know, and I'm sitting in bed looking at the weather on my next leg of the journey in Tokyo, and there's a typhoon. And so I was just wondering how much of that anxiety was about something that, rather than saying, maybe this is something real, I internalized it on myself of, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you happy about this trip? Is there some kind of sabotage going on? And I talked about that, I think, in the last class we had. And instead of trusting myself to say, well, I'm going to be as aware as possible and know that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay, and that everything always works out, and I'm always safe, and I'm always loved, and all of that. You know, instead of that, I went and bought backpacks that were such a hassle the whole trip. God, you're walking around with these. I am not a backpack girl, you know, I'm just not. Schlepping around backpacks and instead of trusting what I know to be true, I tried to make sense of an internal feeling that I had that I didn't have enough information about. And so I just wanted to bring that up, that we are always connected with past, present, future events. We are always connected with everyone and everywhere and every when. At some level, weeks before my trip, I knew that there was some kind of danger in Tokyo. And so what I did is I filtered it through all of my belief systems to think that we were going to get robbed or something bad was going to happen. We're going to be out on the streets and it's going to be cold and we've got nowhere to go. You know, we're lost. All of this drama and trauma and all this stuff. Instead of, there was a typhoon. And so all we did was call and change the plane reservations and ended up with an extra day in Thailand because we didn't have an 18-hour layover once we changed to China Airlines and flew into a different route. We got to Thailand a day early and avoided the typhoon. But I just wanted to put that out there that, I've been doing this for 35, 40 years now. There is still that part of me that doesn't remember. And that's one reason that it's good to have other people around us to say, whatever it is, it's going to be okay. Oh, right. It's always been okay. Even if we die, it's okay. Whatever it is, it's going to be okay. We'll be able to handle it. We'll be able to create whatever safety and happy experiences that we need to have, and to remind ourselves of that. Darcy?
I don't know, I find it really interesting that you're talking about this because I listened to a recording on Saturday that was all about this, and it was talking about how the energies in our lives are changing now, and that things that used to work for us aren't working, and we're looking at ourselves saying, what's wrong, what's wrong? Instead of recognizing that the energy has changed and move into it and find a different way, then you struggle with it. But they're saying that the energy is definitely changing now, and we need to find new ways to work with it.
Right, so when things look different, it's a surprise instead of a problem.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
It's
I
a
probably
surprise.
made myself sick by thinking that I was reacting inappropriately to this trip. I mean, it was our 25th wedding anniversary. It was John's dream to go to Thailand, and I was having serious resistance. And by feeling like I was wrong or bad, I got sick.
But isn't that the natural tendency, though, that we do that to ourselves? But that's kind of like first thought,
Second thought, right.
And then you looked at it a whole different way, and all of a sudden, everything was okay. Things just started working again.
Right.
And that's what I think is happening now. We just need to relook at things and allow and work into them.
And that's why it's so important to remind ourselves.
Well, trusting that the universe is going to support you no matter what, okay? It's the law, it works. It's trusting it, letting go, trusting it, getting out of the way.
Which usually I'm really good at.
Yeah.
Jill?
It's funny the things I remember about your talks way back then that have stayed with me all these years. And this was really short, but I remember once in one of your talks, you said that before you learned to do spiritual mind treatment, you would do a very quick affirmation. And it would be, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. And I can't tell you how many times I've used that, you know, when fear comes up or something. And I remember you, and I just keep saying, I'm okay, I'm okay. And
Right.
it helps.
Right. Second thought. And then you are. Jen?
I was really glad that you shared what you just shared with us, because every night before I go to sleep, I'm always going through my day and just being very thankful for each thing that happened. And I always get to the end of that and realize, I had such an incredibly wonderful day. I wish I could relive it now so that I wouldn't, because I realize when I'm going through my day, there's this little bit of underlying current of just not quite trusting that everything's going to be okay. And so I can't fully enjoy the day like I would love to be able to do.
Right.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Sure, you wish you could go over and live the day and relax into it and enjoy
I
it.
know that the whole thing's going to be great.
Right.
Enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Good. Jane?
I think it's kind of a funny thing about control too. When you mentioned about the backpacks. The thing is that I used to do a lot of traveling, and the only trouble I ever had is people sneaking up behind me and undoing the zippers.
Oh, I got the backpacks that's impossible to do. Oh, yeah. I got the backpacks that lace up, and and they're turned inside, there's no zippers, you can't get to them.
Did you have rocks on them?
No, no, they're sitting in my bedroom looking at me.
That's what I always, whenever my mind takes control and thinks of a solution, you know, it's always screwed up.
Well, that was a conversation with the people at the backpack store. You know, you're going to Asia, and you can walk down the street, and by the time you get where you're going, your backpack is empty. So I got the more expensive kind. That you can do that with. But isn't that crazy? Move into fear, got some anxiety, there's an intuitive wisdom within me that knows that something's gonna happen in Tokyo. I don't know what it is, but I know something's gonna happen into it, rather than trusting. I mean, Jesus, how many years do I have to do this? Rather than trusting, I flipped into fear, I got sick, I spent a lot of money, and I made myself wrong for so many things for weeks, until I figured out that's what it was. Nature? I'm upset about nature? Come on. Darcy and then Tom.
You're human, Barbara, it's nice. I think the weather had something to do with it too, because when we had that low pressure system come through here, it really affected my psyche. I found I was really, really jittery for a couple of days. I was like crashing into things. I couldn't get out of my own way. It was.
Sometimes it's important to stay home on those days.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about a few weeks ago or months ago, about sometimes when you know that things are not right, just stay home.
I did, I took 2 days off.
Good, how smart is that? Wonderful, Tom.
I like to know when, if something's bothering me, what it is beforehand, so I know, so I don't get into that. You know.
Of course you do. Everybody does.
So what I did
Okay.
over the last 30 years was I made these cards, little collage cards of every experience I had. So I have a box, this one I had in a box. And I can pick out little cards and kind of put them together, and the arrangement, and I know which vibe is in each one, and it'll tell me ahead of time what it is, so that.
You have a box of cards that will tell you ahead of time what's going to happen that's bothering you?
Exactly.
Wow, it's a magic box. But don't we all want to know? Because we are all a little bit of a control freak. I'm a control freak, I understand that. And that's a whole second half of the class, so I won't get into it now. But what happens when we don't know, when we don't have Tom's magic box, is we make up a story about the feeling that we have. You know, sometimes people get into a relationship with someone and their intuitive wisdom is saying, run, and they make up a story about that, and it convinces them like they need me, or this is my good deed, or whatever, and they convince themselves to stay when maybe they would have been better off running. So we make up a story about it, and that's why we have to keep ourselves clean and clear by forgiving and releasing and letting go and doing our spiritual practice, so that the story that we make up about it is more in alignment with where we want to go. Patty.
I don't understand what you're saying with first thought and second thought.
Oh.
Do we have time to?
Sure. It's great. You have a thought about something, and it's not the thought that you really want to have. Like you have a thought about, damn it. Now, where's that going to get you? That's going to get you with things happening in your life that have that energy to it. Or you have a thought when an envelope comes in that this is a problem. This is a letter from the bank, something happened, it's not what I want. And then you go, wait a minute, that's not the way I want to think. That's not what I want to think about this experience. So the first thought that you had was your first thought. Even if you thought it a million times, it was the same thought that you thought over and over and over again. You always have an opportunity to have a second thought. And your second thought is, wait a minute, this could be any number of things from the bank. This phone call could be that I'm being called in to work for, could be a promotion instead of being fired. You know, that's your second thought. And so you always have an opportunity to have a second thought. If your first thought is not what you want to live, because it will demonstrate in your life, then you have a chance to think a different thought. So we call that your second thought. And you have a chance to think a second thought about your childhood. You have a second chance to think a second thought about politics. You have a chance to think a second thought about the economy. You have a chance to think a second thought about your partner. You have a chance to think a second thought about you. So take a moment. Is that really what I want to live? Because I am creating this. I have energy on it. I'm thinking it over and over again. I'm telling everybody who will listen about this. Do I really want that in my life? No, that's crazy. I don't want that in my life. Good. Then let's have a second thought. Does that make sense? Good. Any other questions? Breezy.
You started to say remind ourselves. Remind ourselves about what? I didn't get.
What did I say before it? We come together to remind ourselves about who we are. We have friends that will remind us that when we're going into the abyss, that something else can be true. And I find that a lot with people who have diagnoses, they have breakups, they have job terminations, they have things. That's typically when people come to see me. They don't come to see me when everything's just going smooth and great. They come to see me when things are upset and urgent. And so that's a wonderful time to be able to say, there's a blessing in here somewhere. Everything's going to be okay. Take a breath. This is not the end of the world. So that's when we can remind each other and then remind ourselves that we are spiritual beings. We are creating our experience. We're not doing anything wrong. Everything is working out perfectly. Life is a blessing, and so is this. Even if it appears like it's devastation. I mean, think about something. You got fired, you got dumped, your car blew up. Think about something that at the moment seemed like it was terrible. And now you can look back on it and go, that was great. That was wonderful. It freed me up to do what I really wanted to do. Any other questions or comments? Terrific. Let's take a break. Oh, wait a minute. We need someone to take care of the camera at the end of class because Dan and Carrie are... Terry, you come in? Come on in. Come on in. Kathy, you're going the wrong way. There you go. Okay. Donald, shut the door to the kitchen. A little feng shui thing. Thank you. Are we back on? Wonderful. So part of my process of traveling, and I don't know how many of you have traveled internationally. Traveling internationally is different than going to New Mexico or Washington State or something like that, because once you leave the borders of the United States, people live very differently. Whether you're going down to Mexico, to Tijuana, or whether you're going to Southeast Asia. Things are very different. And one of the things that I know about myself, that many people do know about me, is that I love to be in control. I think that's one of the perks of Science of Mind, is that you can often control the circumstances of your life. If you can't control the circumstances of that given second, you can control your thoughts about them. You can know that this is working out, that this is a blessing, that everything is fine. You can shift your attitude about it, and that gives me a sense of being in control. If I don't have something, I know I can manifest it. I can manifest things faster than most people can. I've practiced it for a long time. I found myself in Thailand out of control. And that brought up a bunch of feelings in me. Part of it is not speaking the language. And as I said yesterday, in Thailand they don't have a word for no. It's not in their vocabulary, kind of like universal law. So if you say no meat, What they hear is meat. So I want the stir-fry rice with no meat and no spice. So what they hear is lots and lots of meat and lots of spice. So I could eat the meat, and John could eat the spice, but neither one of us could eat both of them. So we had those kinds of experiences where someone will look at us and they're just so pretty people, you know, and they are always smiling. It is the way that their culture functions with, someone told me, I don't know if it's true or not, with 12 million people in the city of Bangkok alone. There are so many people. We're used to in the US walking. Walking like this requires space. When you have people in front and behind you, you take little steps because there's no place to take a stride. That's just the way that it is. So there are pretty people and they smile a lot and they always say yes because they don't have any way to say no. And what I found about that was that I was allowing myself to get really pissed off. You gotta wait till 6:30 in the morning at the Bangkok Hilton, one of the most expensive hotels in the world, to have coffee. Now at 6:30 in the morning, it's 6:30 at night to my biological clock, and I want my frickin' coffee. I want it, and I want it now. And I want this thing that's foreign to Southeast Asians called cream. Here's some powdered coffee mate. No, that's not what I want. I want cream. They don't have cream. They rarely have milk. There's a whole lack of dairy in their diet. They don't do dairy. They just don't do it. So I found myself feeling out of control and having this, I'm staying at the Bangkok Hilton. John used all of his Hilton honor points to get this room. He told them it was our 25th wedding anniversary. They upgraded us to a suite that overlooked, if you saw my pictures, if you didn't go on my Facebook page, overlooked the river that goes through Bangkok. And we were on the 27th floor. You know, we had that thing where you get to go to the club anytime you want, except not before 6:30. You go in the evenings and get free booze and food and all that stuff. So we had this amazing suite, and I was mad. I'm processing myself, saying, wow, you're giving a lot of your power away to a cup of coffee, aren't you? Well, shut up. And then we'd be out on the streets, and I'd be feeling really together because we figured out the boat taxi to the air train, which is a subway, you know, like an elevated train in Chicago, to how to figure out where we're going, to change the money, to get the coins, to put in the machine, to get the ticket, how to put the ticket in the thing, to get on and catch the right train, and then get off at the right spot. I was feeling really great about that, and how here we are out in Bangkok in the pouring rain. In the pouring rain, and I'm thinking, it's just a little rain. You're already so sweaty, you know, from the heat. It doesn't really matter. It's a nice, refreshing shower you've got going here. But so I got a hold of myself. And I thought, you are not going to mess up this vacation by complaining about everything. You're just not going to do it. So I started looking at my control issues and practicing something that I don't like. Like it at all, never have liked it. Don't know why I had to create it, but it's called patience. I am not a patient person. I want what I want it now. I know I can create it, I can have it, and if I'm not experiencing that, there are great levels of, what is the word? Whatever, it's great levels of lack of alignment between what I want and what I have. And that equates to frustration in me. So I practiced patience. And it wasn't until I started practicing patience that the monks showed up in our trip. It wasn't until I started practicing patience that the monks showed up. And we had some great monk experiences. You know, we got out of a car and the parade was right there in front of us, so that all we had to do was get in line, and we were in those of you who weren't here yesterday, I talked about it yesterday and showed pictures and everything, but we were in the parade of the beginning of the annual celebration in all of Thailand of the end of what they call Buddhist Lent, which is just the time that the Buddhist monks are forbidden from trampling the rice paddies, and they stay in the monastery and they do inner work instead of outer work. So we just ended up in the middle of this. And we went in with the group and we're thinking, should we be here? And so then someone's there with a tray of water and the sweetest, most chemical-laden drink I've ever had in my life, which I was grateful to have, you know, because it was hot. And we had an opportunity to have 2 hours of a Buddhist ceremony after I stopped complaining about the coffee, about the lack of cream in my coffee, about the too much meat, too much spice, and how things were not exactly like I thought they were going to be in Thailand. And so what I wanted to offer to us in this The Art of Shifting Consciousness class is the opportunity to once again, as a community, pick up the 30 days of no complaining. 30 days of no complaining, and I got this from Edwin Gaines, who, by the way, will be here the first Sunday in January. Edwin's booked to be here the first Sunday in January, so make sure you're here the first Sunday in January because she's fantastic. But she's the one who brought this into my awareness many, many years ago, and here is the deal. 30 days of not complaining, and if you complain, don't worry, don't beat yourself up, just start over. Just start over. And so what happens is the few of us will hit the 30 days. The rest of us will just spend the rest of our lives not complaining. I'm not sure who the winner is in that. Frankly, I think the ones that just go on and on and on, being mindful of not complaining, have the better deal. And the reason that we practice not complaining is what? What is the reason? To get into alignment with what? All of the good, because when you're complaining, what are you in alignment with? Not good. Not good. When you're complaining, you are energizing the experiences that you don't want to have. You can actually pull out of someone a whole different person by complaining about them. One of the worst things you can do in a relationship is complain about your partner, because then they will be that person to you. They will become that person to you, the one that you're complaining about, the one that you see them as. Your finances. If you complain about the amount of money you have, and people complain about their money, it doesn't matter how much they have. I mean, I know people who have lots and lots and lots and lots of money, and they still complain about it. Stock market dropped. Gosh, what is it that dropped today? IBM dropped 6 or 7%. You know, I lost a fortune today. Oh, it's a terrible thing. Oh, stop it. You live in a mansion, you drive a Rolls Royce, you've got people taking care of your every need. So what if the stock market, if your one stock dropped 7%? Stop complaining about it. Because if you complain about it, you'll only bring it forth in your life. How many people have practiced the no complaining? How was it for you?
Difficult.
Isn't that amazing how we each see things differently? Difficult and fabulous. What else?
She had a day and she took her.
You don't get to talk about her. I get to talk about you.
Well, she threw hers at mine.
I threw it at her.
It's because I gave her one of these bracelets, complainfreeworld.org.
Yes.
And every time you complain, you have to change wrists.
Right.
Well, I'm so glad you're not snapping yourself.
No, I don't
Thank
snap
you.
myself,
Thank
okay? There's no punishment with it sometimes, but it's hard.
Well, let's visit that mindset. It's difficult or hard.
It was very easy to switch from hand to hand until I had a day where things was like, okay, I'm gonna be spending my whole day switching it back and forth. So here, Sandy, you take the damn. Closer to my desk.
It's a really great reminder, because every time you look at your list, it reminds you to be thankful for something
Right.
and appreciate what you have.
Right, because
So,
what you are grateful for and what you appreciate grows in your life.
Absolutely.
Now, what you complain about also grows.
Yes, it does.
So it's important to be mindful of the choice. John?
Well, I was just caught by when you recognize the word hard, and that's something I've been working on in my life, is, you know, when I say something's hard, or, oh, that's really hard, eventually, I'm kind of inviting myself not to do it or to surrender to it, and I've used the word courageous. That's really going to be courageous, John. Wow, that's going to take a lot of courage. It's much more inviting. Me is, you know, kind of competitive, I guess. It's challenging, but it invites me into it rather than pushes me away. Courageous rather than hard.
Good, thank you. Let's reframe this idea of not complaining, because truly what's hard is living the complaint, living the creation of our complaint. It's hard to be poor. You want something that's hard? It's hard to be sick. It's hard to be miserable. It's hard to be frustrated. It's not that hard to close your mouth. Let me see, do I want to be poor or do I want to just close my mouth? I want to close my mouth. I want to close my mouth. And even if you're thinking it, don't let it out of your mouth. Practice some self-discipline. One of the things that this teaching requires of you is that you learn to master yourself. You master your thoughts, you master your words, you master your feelings, and you master your actions. And when you are in control of those things, you can consciously choose to create the life that you want. Being unconscious, which is what most people are, puts you in a space of seeing the worst instead of the best, and then living the creation of that worst. So let's reframe it. It could be courageous. What else could it be other than hard?
Creative.
Easy, creative,
Interesting.
interesting, enlightening.
But fun.
It could be fun, wonderful. So if you are complaining about your 30 days of complaining, you want to shift it. You want to shift it. And if you're finding yourself frustrated about things in your world, what a wonderful opportunity is. It's like tithing. It brings up the dragons and lets you look at yourself square in the face and say, what is this that I am so upset about? I was getting to where I was laughing at myself, just going places and saying, oh, do I want to eat the whole frog on a stick? Because right now that looks like the only option of anything that I at least recognize as food. No, I think I'll go have the fruit. So I had a lot of fruit in Thailand, but I got to where instead of just this is not what I was promised, this is not what the website said, this is not what I paid for, blah, 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 blah. Instead of going there, there was more of a chuckle. Oh, well, look at how things are once again different. I mean, really, really different. And those of you who travel a lot internationally, you know that. You're thinking, well, God, Barbara, you should have seen that coming. You're going to Southeast Asia, for God's sake. It's different there. It's very different. And you went without learning any of the language. Although I had 4 different Thai translators downloaded onto my phone, I needed a Wi-Fi connection for it to work. I had the thing where you speak into the phone and it speaks out Thai, not without a Wi-Fi connection.
You missed it, frog is really wonderful.
It was the whole frog.
You eat selectively.
And pigeon. At any rate, what I always feel is that whatever I'm going through, we're going through as a group. So what I would like to offer is to become very mindful over the next 30 days of what comes out of our mouth, and to aspire to a state of consciousness, because it is the art of shifting consciousness from seeing what's wrong to seeing what's right. And remember when we started the class, we had the faces and we snapped them back and forth, and you felt that shift. And I talked about looking at something from the past and seeing how it had worked out well, and you went into diodes and you shared that. And then the next one was to take something right now that seemed to be going wrong and create some kind of a story from the future of how it worked out. And you could include aliens, you could include lotteries, it didn't matter. What you were doing was creating a story about how it worked out. So what we're going to do about the complaining thing is, even if something's staring you right in the face, you get to make up a story about how this is a blessing. One of the things that I love to do in the traveling part of my life, because I really love the idea of being on time, and when I'm not on time, it's an opportunity for me to berate myself for not having control of time, because time is flexible and I can bend time and I can do whatever I want with time. So if I'm not doing it, what's up with that? I can make up a story that there are experiences in the works that are having me avoid something that would not be for my highest and best. Since I'm always in my perfect and right place, everything is always operating for my highest and best. If I'm not where I think I should be, it must be because everything is operating for my highest and best, and I am in my perfect and right place. So sometimes I have this vision of legions of angels that have gone out of their way to create this traffic jam on 26 that's keeping me from getting where I want to go, instead of thinking, oh, this is terrible, the accident is on the other side of the freeway, why do people have to slow down and gawk to try to see if they can see some blood? You know, these stupid people are backing up on, I'm supposed to be, instead of going there, I can create a story about how everything is working out. So however you want to do it. Oh, this gives me an opportunity to practice my breathing. Open your eyes while you're driving. This gives me an opportunity to think about what I'm going to say when I get to the meeting. This is somehow setting up experiences that won't come into play for 20 years when I'm going to bump into somebody on a street corner because of exactly this set of circumstances that on a limited perspective appears wrong, but on a higher perspective is exactly what needs to happen for me to experience my life the way that I want it to be, even if it's a long time down the road. See, I get to make it up any way that I want to. So what way am I going to make it up? Am I going to make it up that I'm wrong, it's bad, they're stupid? Or am I going to make it up that everything is unfolding perfectly for my highest and best, there's only good in this, life is a blessing, and I'm going to claim that because I'm on day 20, and I'm not going to give in to this one little incident and start all over again. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Have you ever done that?
Yes.
I love making stuff up. I love making stuff up because then whatever it is I've made up shows up. Whatever it is I've made up shows up. And as I control my thoughts and my feelings, my words and my actions, I set spiritual law in motion and things happen so that I get to live the life of my dreams. So 31 days, is it 30 or 31? 30 days, you just got a day. 30 days of no complaining, you are the only one who is going to know. You're the only one who's going to know. And if you have a first thought, have a second thought. If you default into complaining, have a second thought and just start all over again. Wow, you get to do it again. Isn't that great? You got another month of happiness. Yay! Yay! You got another month of focusing on the possibility of life, the blessing of life, of knowing that everything happens for your highest and best of life. And you may have an opportunity to look at some of your control issues. Control issues for me, I've found to come up when I feel like I'm not connected. You know, it's like there are different ways to manifest. There's a way to manifest where you're just open and blessings galore show up. And you're not really treating that you find this shoe in this size in this store. You're just knowing that all is well. You're just knowing that your life is unfolding and everything is great. That's one way to manifest. Another way to manifest is to get real specific and make it happen. And you can do that. I don't recommend it, or I don't recommend it for long. But you can make it happen. You can focus on it. You can create it. You can use your willpower to bring it into form now. Like when our passports were missing. I wasn't being free and easy. I was knowing those passports were here. We needed those passports. So you can create something like that, and when you do that, you are using up a lot of energy. You are limiting your demonstration to just what you have thought should be. So there are different levels of creating, and as you're moving into this no complaining, what you want to do is you just want to be open to whatever is. And as your control issues come up and you feel that sense of wanting to make sure the sun comes up, so you're going to rotate the earth and make it happen because the weight of the world is on your back, and your chiropractor keeps popping it back in and you keep popping it back out, you know, you may want to let that go and know that there is something greater inside of you that really does have it together, that really has moved into a different state of being. I always like to think that, especially when things are looking dark and we're here, that there is a part of us from the future that's already moved through it that reaches out a hand to help us forward. Because there's always that part of us, since there's no time, that has already moved through whatever issue it is at hand into our future greater yet to be. And since it's all us, then whatever assistance comes to us is all coming from us. So I like to just make it up that it is the Barbara of the future who has it all worked out that reaches out and says, come on, sweetie, it's okay. Let's just go. Don't worry about it. It's going to be all right. And then I can just move forward. So if you have control issues coming up, don't worry about it. It's just your opportunity to let them go. That means that if the dog does something that you didn't think the dog should do, let it go. If your neighbor does something, we have a neighbor across the creek now that patrols the creek bank with his rifle early in the morning and unnerves me with the gunshots. So if that's happening,
What's he patrolling for?
probably groundhogs
For snakes, they look to
or snakes. Yeah. So I have an opportunity to either get all upset about it or let it go. Now, which one is going to serve me more? Let me go. If I confront him about it, chances are he's going to shoot more. He's not going to go, oh, the neighbor doesn't want me to shoot. That's not going to happen. So just let it go. Know that life is a circle, you know, of birth and death, and that all things are in perfect order and my dog is safe. When someone doesn't do what you think they should have done, just let it go. One of the things about control is that it comes from a lack of personal boundaries. A personal boundary is to know where I am here and you are there, and that there's a boundary here, and that what you do doesn't have anything to do with me, and that what I think you should do doesn't have anything to do with you. Terry Cole Whitaker wrote a great book called What You Think of Me Is None of My Business.
Yeah.
And frankly, what I think of you is none of your business. It's none of my business either. So when you're having control issues come up and when you're feeling disconnected, we tend to want to control the people around us and make them be the way that we think they should be so that we'll feel safe. Let it go. As soon as you start complaining about someone else, it is your control, trying to control the experiences in your life to compensate for your own sense of insecurity. And the only reason you have a sense of insecurity is because you're not feeling connected to the whole. When you feel connected to the whole, you feel great. You know that everything is going wonderfully and that you don't have to butt in to anybody else's business, that things really can be okay. One of the things that we talked about yesterday was the transitioning of Masato Emoto, who was the guy who did the water research, where he would take water from a very polluted water source in Japan and tape a simple blessing like love on the bottle, put the bottle on the shelf. And then in the morning, he would take the polluted water, freeze it, and just as it froze, take a picture of it with a microscope that took photographs. And then he would take the exact same water that just had a little word in Japanese called love taped to it with a piece of paper and a piece of Scotch tape. This was not high tech. And he would freeze that same water and take a picture of it, and the crystalline changes were amazing. They were so beautiful. And not only did he do that, but the practice has grown since the very first one. But the first one was he took a bunch of people out to a very polluted lake in Japan, and they circled it and they did a simple Buddhist blessing on the water. Turned around and went home. 30 days later, the polluted lake that people couldn't even get close to, it stunk so bad, was completely clear, was swimmable, was being written up in all the local papers that they didn't know how the lake got cleaned up, and there were fish in it. There were no fish in it before, it was dead. So what he showed us was that when we look at something and label it with an idea, it transforms. And he transitioned, and so we were talking about that on Sunday. So when we are connected and when we look at someone and say, I see love, I see beauty. And to me, Becca, you are love and beauty. And other people in the world, you may be, you know, a terrible person, but that's them. To me, you are love and beauty, and I see that in you, and that's what comes forth. They did studies with kindergarten classes back when, before it was illegal to do such things to children. And they took the smart kids and they gave them to the teacher and said they were the dumb kids, and they took the dumb kids and gave them to the teacher and said they were the smart kids, and by the end of the year, the smart kids had gotten dumb and the dumb kids had gotten smart. Just because of how the teacher saw them. And so if you see somebody in your world as capable and competent and beautiful and wonderful and joy-filled and prosperous and healthy, they will become that. And because you're seeing it, you get that in your life. I don't know if the practitioner panel shared that with you, but whatever they treat for, they get. So when you go to a practitioner and say, I'd like you to treat for me for money, they're like, yeah. Yeah, or I want you to treat for me for love. Yeah, because they get that, because that's what they are knowing in their consciousness. So however you see the people in your world, however you see the circumstances in your world, you will literally change those people and circumstances into that. So if you've got a bank account and you're going to check your balance with your debit card, get really clear before you do that. I used to say before you opened up your checkbook, but nobody does that anymore. Before you check your balance with your debit card, get really clear that there is lots of money there. And then you put your debit card in and you go, wow, look at all the money in my bank account. If you get a letter from somebody that could go either way, let's say it's a deal you're working on. It either could be the closing is next Wednesday, or, you know, too bad, we went with somebody else. Get really clear before you open that letter. Hold it, sing to it. Joanna went to a casino and she's singing "There's Only Love" to the slot machine. And how much money did you win?
$350 in nickels.
$350 in nickels. She's singing out loud, "There is only love," you know, and she won money in the casino. Everything is a reflection of your consciousness, the art of shifting consciousness. If you find yourself going into the dark side that comes out of your mouth as complaining because you have seen limitation and lack, pull yourself back, have a second thought, and do some kind of a blessing. And I don't care if you're making it up. Mighty Mouse is about to fly in here and save the day. Yay! I don't care what it is. What you do is you shift your awareness, you claim some kind of good, and then everything changes and it turns into the good. Yes, Jane?
I used to teach, and that works if you're a teacher. And I used to think I was so thrilled by my students, and I thought they were brilliant. And they became brilliant writers.
Of course.
And they, a lot of them won prizes and stuff. And these are kids, none of them had been good in English or writing or anything. I purposely had kids come, like engineer, you know, and other mathematics and stuff. And
Those math kids.
And those kids just turned into great, great writers.
Of course, because that's the way you see them.
I saw them.
How do you see your world? When you awaken in the morning, how do you see your world? Do you see what's right or do you see what's wrong? If you see what's wrong, you're going to have a day filled with wrong. If you see what's right, even if you have to twist it around in your head a little bit, then you're going to have a day filled with right. And not complaining is a simple tool that we can use to remind us to stay on track with our thinking. Honestly, when I stopped complaining, I had Buddhist monks show up. I had temples, I had gifts given to me. We got to sit with the head honcho monk, you know, we got to be part of ceremonies, we got to do all kinds of things. And that was because I stopped looking at what was wrong with my coffee. Call me shallow, you know, we're all like that. So when I stopped being shallow, my life got deep. Yeah, I had a much nicer trip. Yeah. Even though I did drop 10 pounds in Thailand. I'm sure I sweated it all off.
All those massages.
I don't know what it was, but I dropped 10 pounds in Thailand. Go figure.
It was not eating frogs.
So are we in?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you don't want to be in, that's your business. You know, this is not mandatory, but I do hold it up as a very sacred spiritual practice of looking for the good and finding it and training yourself to do that. To be master of your state is to be master of your fate. Once again, a barbarism. And that's what we're practicing in this class, is how to shift it, how to shift it, how to shift it, how to shift it, how to change. When a plane flies from point A to point B, it never flies in a direct line. Did you know that?
Yes.
A plane is never on course. It's always off course. It's always correcting. Planes always fly in a zigzag. They go off course, they correct. They go off course, they correct. A flight plan is always a zigzag. The flight of a plane is always a zigzag. So what we are practicing is not, oh my gosh, I went off course, I'm a terrible person, I'm a failure at spirituality. We're practicing getting back on course, getting back on course, getting back on course. And the no complaining on this deal is out of your mouth. So if you think it and you stop it before it comes out of your mouth, you're good. You're good. You can work on not thinking it later. Right now we're just stopping it before it comes out of your mouth. Okay? We'll take it one step at a time. One day at a time here. Any other questions? Yes, Sharon.
This will sound like I'm making fun, but I'm really wondering, when you wanted the coffee so bad, you could manifest it?
That was my frustration. In Thailand, I couldn't. Because they didn't get it. They're tea drinkers. They don't understand coffee. I mean, I could have had instant Nescafe with instant coffee mate, but to me, that's not my coffee. And there was a time in Chiang Mai, that magical day that we had, where we did find our one and only Starbucks. And it was air conditioned. So when I stopped having, language, Barbara, when I stopped being so upset about really little things, I was in Southeast Asia, come on. I was about to be very close to the Burmese border. I was in a different world when I stopped nitpicking about the things that weren't quite up to speed with what my preferences were. Then magical things happened, and we found a Starbucks that was empty because people in Thailand don't get coffee. They don't understand it. It was 2 stories. There were 4 people in the whole place, and it was air conditioned, which in 93-degree temperature with 100% humidity is something. So that wasn't a making fun, it was true.
Yeah, but did your keys work?
What keys?
Your hotel keys. My company probably made them.
The Bangkok Hilton, which is the only one we had a key for, was wonderful.
See if it has PLI on the back.
You know it is, Darcy, come on.
Darcy's company makes hotel keys. Anything else? Any other questions, comments? I want you to come next week having done this. Those of you who are doing it, let's do it. Let's do it for a week and come back and share what our process is. Because my experience is that if you can go 30 days without complaining, your life will totally change. Will totally change. Because your consciousness has totally changed, and you have trained yourself to see the good in everyone and everything. And what happens is you create that good in your life. Okay? And it's not going to be hard, it's going to be easy.
Easy and an adventure.
Easy and an adventure.
I
Margo.
just saw a little sign on the church I wanted to share. It said, imagine if you wake up tomorrow with only those things you were grateful for today.
Right.
Oh, that's nice.
And that really hit,
Right. Right. An attitude of gratitude, it's a powerful thing. And the antithesis of that is petty complaining. So let's flip it. Same way we did the faces. Let's flip it. Because I know I'm not the only one who does this. Anything else?
Just because you don't see us next week doesn't mean we stayed away because we couldn't do the week and we're in Virginia Beach.
Wonderful, and I know you'll be practicing seeing the good in all things in Virginia Beach. Good, good, good. Okay, take out what you're going to give. It's good to be here. So as we hold this gift with open hearts and clear minds, we know that we are embarking on a spiritual practice of giving and receiving. We know that we are blessed in this life, that the presence of the divine is prosperous and abundant and infinite and manifest as us now. We know that that prosperity and abundance of spirit is manifested in our finances, in our money, and in the body of our affairs. So right here and right now, I claim for each and every one of us that we are rich. We are rich. We live in the richest country in the world. Every morning is a gift. We are rich, and we acknowledge that richness. We acknowledge that blessing of life. We take the time to enjoy it. And I know that as we give, we receive. So right here and right now, we get ready. We know that God has ways of giving us money that we've never even dreamed of yet. We know that we deserve to be rich and blessed in this life. And we give this gift freely out of our fullness and out of our clarity of who we are, knowing that it goes to bless this center in every way, to set the law in motion, and to come back to us multiplied abundantly. I know that each and every one of us comes together to make this center all that it is ever meant to be. It is a place of peace, a beacon of light, a tower of strength, and a fountain of wisdom that touches the lives of all who call it home. And so it is. And what I know is that these gifts are blessed. Our lives are blessed. This center is blessed. And I know that as we move out into our week, we take the time to acknowledge the blessings that are ours. We notice the sunrises. We smell the flowers. We notice the love that we share for each other. We move into that state of gratitude in every moment, and we get what an amazing life each of us is living. So I know that everything in these baskets is blessed, that we are the blessing. Spirit moves through each and every one of us, filling up this room from the floor to the ceiling and all between the walls. This air, I can see it, is rich and blessed with God as us. It touches us, it blesses us, it heals us. That prosperity consciousness goes out to circle this world, to remind people that we are living the blessed life, that each and every one of us has more than enough water, more than enough food, more than enough shelter, more than enough opportunity, more than enough safety, more than enough peace. That consciousness that we are awakens each and every one of us to remember who we are, God in form as us, spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe, governed by spiritual law. I know that this is blessed and blesses every one of us here tonight, everyone who's ever been here, and everyone yet to come. And so it is. I love you guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.